Hello, welcome to Spread Book Joy. Today I have a reading ramble. If you're new to the channel, I'm Jack, and if you're not new, welcome back to Spread Book Joy. And I thought I'd try and do a more frequent reading ramble for you because the last time I did one, I had so many books and I wanted to talk about so many other things that I didn't have time for it because it had been so long since my last one. So I'm going to try and do them a little bit more frequently. So yeah, I'm going to just talk a bit about what I have read since we last spoke, and I have a book haul. Now I wanted to do this in the last video, but again, it was just too many books to talk about. So I'm just going to talk about what I've read since we last spoke, because it won't be a huge amount of things. So when we last spoke, I just finished Mayflies by Andrew O'Hagan. There's a BBC series on at the moment. I enjoyed the book a lot and I really loved the second half, but on reflection, the first half wasn't up to snuff with the second half. And when I think about it, I left my thoughts on the group, and then I left my thoughts again and left my thoughts again because I kept chewing over what did and didn't work for me. What worked for me, beautiful prose, beautiful writing, really poetic thoughts, and some quite real poignant thoughts and moments about growing older and sort of the passing ephemeral nature of life, and how, you know, before you know it, you're 18 one minute and 50 the next, and where did the time go? And the passing of time, and thinking back to, you know, our younger selves and things like that. So it's very poignant, and I really enjoyed the character of Tully, but the first half of the book couldn't really connect as well with the first half of the book, so I wasn't thinking it was going to be that great. But the characters just that weren't the two main best friends in the story, they just didn't, I couldn't distinguish between them. So that's not a good sign, is it, when you can't distinguish between the characters? So yeah, mixed bag on Mayflies, but the majority overall, because of the second half, I think I really enjoyed Mayflies, and I would definitely read more by Andrew O'Hagan. So I read The Switch by Beth O'Leary, and that followed on from reading The Flat Share, and I enjoyed The Flat Share. It was fun, really nice characters in it, and a good exploration of controlling coercive relationships and things like that. So I read The Switch because I really like Beth O'Leary's characters and her writing, and The Switch is delightful, really lovely book, and it met my older protagonist prompt for the past and future readathon, because The Switch is about Eileen, who's 79, Eileen Cotton, and her granddaughter, who's also called Eileen Cotton, but she's Lena. And Lena lives in London and her grandmother lives in the Yorkshire Dales, and they swap lives. And it sounds quite far-fetched when you put it that way, but it was done really naturally in the book. Lena is perhaps suffering from burnout. Both of them are grieving because Lena's sister has died, and they've not really come to terms with it. So they decide to swap lives, and I really enjoyed this book. The characters were great. The situations were funny without being farcical, and I didn't have the eye-rolling moments that I had with The Flat Share. So I think The Switch is a better book, and I listened to it. It was narrated by Alison Steadman, and the other narrator I can't remember, but Alison Steadman was Eileen, and she was brilliant. So the audiobook was a real treat. If you've never read any Beth O'Leary, I'd highly recommend her. She does really nice contemporary romance, but she also touches on serious social issues. So she, in this book, for instance, she explores older women dating, and she also explores loneliness and burnout and grief and things like that, but it's all done in such a palatable way that it makes it a nice read. So yeah, I'd highly recommend Beth O'Leary for some nice escapist reading. So I was also reading Menopausing by Davina McCall. If you're not from the UK, Davina McCall is a TV presenter over here. She's been a hugely popular presenter of TV shows for the last 30 years over here. She was the original presenter of UK Big Brother, and yeah, she's very bubbly, forceful personality. She's really popular over here, and she used to do all these exercise videos and things like that. So she did a documentary a year ago, or in the last year, or all around menopause, and trying to bring it into the public conversation, because so many women go through it and suffer, and they don't know enough about the process, and we're not taught enough about the process, and we don't openly talk about it. So 50% of the population is going to go through menopause, and that means that it should be more known about, it should be discussed, and it shouldn't be a shameful secret to discuss menopause. So yeah, I'm openly admiring Davina McCall for raising awareness of a really important topic. She's not the only one doing it, but she is enough of a household name here in the UK that it's spread a lot of awareness. So her book is full of really, really useful information. So there are sections on sort of symptoms of menopause, when you might start going through menopause, perimenopause, which is the 8 or so years leading up to actually having the menopause. So she discusses the symptoms and what to do about it and what your treatments are. She is a big advocate for taking hormone replacement therapy, which has had a hugely negative press for decades now. And she talks about how much safer HRT is than the contraceptive pill, which most people don't bat an eyelid about taking. She didn't write it on her own. She wrote it with a team of scientists and a menopause expert. So one downside of the book for me, and one reason I stopped reading it, is that there are an awful lot of menopause horror stories in the book, and people sharing their journey through menopause, and it all seem to be quite negative to start with, when they're talking about the symptoms and how it affected their lives to the point where it just, you know, destroyed their careers or all sorts of things. And I was listening to it and I thought, the reason these stories are here is so other women or people going through menopause might feel that they're not alone. They're not alone in what they're going through. But I personally, I've always said if I were ever to have a child, I wouldn't want to hear a million birthing stories or watch any birthing videos. I just, you know, you're going to go through it. You can't stop it from happening. And some people like knowledge. I like to have a basic understanding of things, but if something I'm going to go through, I don't want to know every possible symptom or every possible horrible thing that might happen to me. So that for me didn't work, but there was such good information in it. I do think it's a book that's worth passing around to people and for partners to read and for people to have more awareness. And I don't think we should be ashamed of saying if we're having symptoms of menopause. And I don't know why it's acceptable that I can tell people I've got a hangover if I'm not performing at my best, but if I said, oh, I've got a bit of brain fog, then it would be something to be ashamed of. So I think what this has taught me more than anything is that we should be quite open about anything we're going through or any symptoms we're feeling, and yeah, because it's perfectly normal and natural, and it doesn't make you any less of a person for it or any less effective of a person at your job or whatever. So yeah, it was a good book, but just be warned about all the menopause horror stories in it. And I finally finished this gorgeous book, The House on the Cerulean Sea. I read it with my friend Sally from Salbo Reads over on Instagram, and she bought me this for my birthday. I don't even think it was last year, I think it might have been the year before, and we finally read it together. And I think I'd like to make a tradition with her of reading a cosy, because we basically said we'll read a chapter each at bedtime, and then we got to the last 3 or 4 chapters and we couldn't put it down. We'll read a chapter each at bedtime as sort of a night, like a nice before bed read. And I've discovered that I really need to read things that are not too challenging and things that are more comforting before I go to sleep, because I suffer from insomnia, and if I stay awake and I'm reading something that is playing on my mind, it will go through my mind. So this was the perfect read for me for that, and I think perfect for January. And I think everyone knows what it's about. It's about magical children who are kept in a government-run orphanage, and someone goes to investigate the orphanage and see if the orphanage is running well. And it's full of amazing, life-affirming advice and gorgeous quotes. I think for some people it might seem a bit too overly syrupy or metaphorical, but for me it was just perfect for what I needed at the moment. And I just think it was a lovely book with lovely characters. I could see it being made in some sort of Pixar film, actually. It was that lovely. But yeah, really enjoyed that. Oh, and it was my book to set the tone for the year. So that was from the Past and Future Readathon prompt, and a perfect tone to the year has been set. So currently I am reading Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I started it yesterday. I was hoping to get it finished before I start reading Jamaica in February. So that's one that I'm reading at the moment. I also started listening to The Hollow Places, or The Hollow Place, by T. Kingfisher. T. Kingfisher is an author I had discovered by watching Dia over Novel Idea, and then found that T. Kingfisher's books are on audio on Scribd, and I think they're kind of a mixture between fantasy and horror, though The Hollow Places, when it started, it's just written very, it kind of reminded me of very Charlaine Harris in style, this conversational style. The main character is narrating the book. It's set in the South, so that's probably where I'm getting the Charlaine Harris vibes from. But yeah, some strange things. So in The Hollow Places, the character is called Carrot, which is actually called Cara, but her uncle refers to her as Carrot. and she has got divorced, she's moved home, and her uncle runs a museum of curios, and she moves in with him and she helps him look after the museum, and then she discovers something really unbelievable and amazing in the museum. So I won't say any more than that, but yeah, so far it started off well, really engaged me and grabbed me with the writing, and it was quite humorous. It's quite humorous as well, so even though I suspect some horrific things are about to happen, it's been quite humorous, so I'm enjoying that. So on to the book haul. So first I'm going to talk to you about the books I got for Christmas as presents, and I did a quick short of them over Christmas, but I was sent Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief by the lovely Emily from Novell Novels. I do actually have a copy of this, however it is in storage, and I do want to start rereading the series. So I say reading, I've read the first two. I don't own the second one, but I do own this one, and I have read it before, but I do want to reread it. So thank you, Emily, for sending it to me, because my copy is locked away and it probably will be for the next year or so. So this was actually a really good present for me. I was sent Jamaica In by my lovely friend Paula from Old Bookish Woman over on Instagram, and this was perfect timing because I needed it for the Jamaica In read along. She got it off of my wish list, so I'm really pleased about that one. And lovely Sally over at Salvo Read, she got me this gorgeous book. So it's quite thin, you can see. It's called Hex by Jenny Fagan. And this is all about the witch trials in Scotland, and it's based on the woman Gaylis Duncan, who is tried for witchcraft. And it's she's in her cell on the last night of her life, and someone who claims to be a visitor from the future comes to the cell and asks her to tell her tale and offers her comfort. And it's a very short book, so I think I'm going to try and pick this up at some point when I've got a whole afternoon to read it in. So yeah, what a beautiful cover as well, isn't it? Got this gorgeous collection of animal and folk tales from the UK, from Britain and Ireland, and this was from Gemma at Gem of Books, because Gemma knows I keep talking about my fairy tale project that I started a number of years ago, and I've been meaning to continue, where I want to read particularly British and Irish folk tales and fairy tales, because we know tons and tons of European ones, but not necessarily any from Britain. So yeah, I was really thrilled to get this. Look at this gorgeous cover. So, little look there. So thank you, Gemma. I got Jane and Prudence from Ange's Book Chatter. So she sent me this Barbara Pym. So this I think is one of Barbara Pym's more popular novels. And yeah, I'm really excited to get into this. I think Ange and I might read this together. So it says here, if Jane Cleveland and Prudence Bates seem an unlikely pair to be walking together at an Oxford reunion, neither of them are aware of it. They couldn't be more different. Jane is a rather incompetent vicar's wife who always looks as if she's about to feed the chickens, while Prudence, a pristine hothouse flower, has the most unsuitable affairs. With the move to a rural parish, Jane is determined to find her friend the perfect man. She learns, though, that matchmaking has as many pitfalls as housewifery. Or housewifery? Would you say? Like you say midwifery? I don't know. But yeah, this sounds awesome and I can't wait to read it. And then Gemma from Gem of Books sent me volume 4 of Heartstopper, which I really need to get to, and that's another one I want to sit down and devour in an afternoon. So I can't wait till I can get a free afternoon to do these things. And this is another afternoon read for me at some point. This is from Alice at Alice in the Giant Bookshelf. She sent me the volume 4 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, this series, which is sort of reimagining the original Buffy series, but setting it in modern times. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting to this one. Then this, yay, the second Richard Osman book, because I love the Thursday Murder Club. This was a present from the lovely Danny at Danny's Book World, and the Thursday Murder Club, it's all about older people who usually get together to try and solve cold cases. They live in a retirement community, and I really enjoyed the first book, and everyone knows this series, right? I don't need to give you any more details on it than that, but I've been really looking forward to reading the second one because I loved the first one. And she also sent me, she was so generous, Tom Felton's biography, which is Beyond the Wand, and I started reading a few chapters of it at Christmas, but I put it down because I didn't have time. But I am going to get back to it as soon as I can, because yeah, really heard such great things about it, and I like him already reading it. He sounds like a lovely person. So Danny is back on BookTube. She had taken a break from it for a while, but she's had to set up a new account, so I'm going to link it in the description box below, because if you were subscribed to Danny, go over and do so. If you weren't subscribed to Danny and you like my content, you'll really love Danny's content. She's so lovely. She reviews lovely books. She's just got this quiet, calm, soothing, chatty manner about her videos, and I really love it. So yeah, go and subscribe to Danny ASAP. So those were my Christmas books. I then managed to get a few books in a second-hand shop, in a charity shop. So I'm just going to talk about those really, really quickly because they were books that I've wanted for ages. One of them is Strange Worlds Detective Agency, which is by L.D. Lipinski, and this has been on my wish list for absolutely ages. And it is supposed to be a wonderful magical middle grade, and it's supposed to have really good representation in it. So I'm looking forward to getting to this. Trans representation. So yeah, it's supposed to be a really good read. Got the second Becky Chambers book. I've wanted this for absolutely ages, so yeah, couldn't resist this. A copy of Breakfast at Tiffany's as well. I've wanted to read this for years, so yeah, couldn't resist getting that. And I will never not get a Sarah Waters book if I see it in a second-hand shop. So there is Sarah Waters' The Night Watch, and yeah, this means I've got 3 Sarah Waters on my TBR at the moment. I've got to start reading them. She's such a good writer. I know I'm going to love absolutely everything that she's written. Same charity shop book haul, I couldn't resist getting this. Back Home by Michelle Megorian. Michelle Megorian wrote Goodnight Mr. Tom, and that is our book club FOMO book club pick for March and April, because it is middle grade March, of course, so we picked a middle grade book for that, and I think I'm going to love Goodnight Mr. Tom, and this is her only other middle grade book from what I could see when I looked it up. I don't think she's got any others, so and she's an award-winning author. According to this, 2 books by Michelle Megorian, Goodnight Mr. Tom and Back Home. And Back Home is the story of children who come back to London after being evacuated to America, and they spent the war in America. They've kind of grown up quite a bit over there and don't really remember the UK that much, and they have to come back. And of course, life in the UK compared to America during the Second World War was very, very different. So yeah, I'm looking forward to reading that. And then 2 more things. Another was a gift. This wasn't a Christmas present. This is Beowulf, and it's the Seamus Heaney translation. I've never read Beowulf. Never read Beowulf. Most of my sort of older reading and stuff like that, the oldest reading I usually do is classical Greek and Roman, which I did for my degree. Any sort of Middle English that I'd read was Chaucer, which I did at A-level, but I've never read Beowulf, and this translation is supposed to be amazing. Everyone says how amazing it is. I mentioned it to David Wiley, and he loves Beowulf, and he said this is a great translation. It's a good place to start, so I will be talking to you about this, David, when I finally get to it. And then I was walking past a little free library that I pass on the way home from the tube station, and I pass it most days, and I rarely look into it because I don't want to keep going into this little free library. I try not to look into it too often, and I spotted this, which is a film tie-in cover of The Diving Bell and the Butterfly by Jean-Dominique Bauby. Now, I saw Gloria Z. Thompson's plans for this year, Gloria Z. Thompson's plans of this year, and one of them is to read The Diving Bell and the Butterfly. This is a work of non-fiction. It was a big deal, and I remember when she mentioned it, I was like, oh my gosh, I remember that book being a huge deal when I was a bookseller in the late 90s. It was a really big deal, and it was because it's a true memoir of Jean-Dominique Bauby, who was the editor of Elle magazine, and he suffered a hugely catastrophic, I think, a stroke, or did he have an accident? I think it was a stroke, and he then awoke and he had locked-in syndrome, which is where he's completely paralysed aside from his left eyelid, and he dictated this entire book by blinking his left eyelid, which is pretty amazing, and also quite terrifying. So yeah, I'm thinking this is one to read alongside one of my nicer books, so to offset what is sure to be a really tragic read, but apparently it's a really beautiful book as well. So it's about, it can be quite life affirming to read. So yeah, that was another one I picked up. So that's a pretty big book haul, but it is all the things I got for Christmas plus some things that I got just before or just after Christmas. I can't remember when it was. I went to the charity shop. But yeah, the other thing that I'm really delighted about was I got a Kindle Oasis, and I'm really, really pleased with my Kindle Oasis because I have wanted buttons on my Kindle for so long. I've had a Kindle Paperwhite and I've just never got on with it. Aside from the backlit screen, which I really need now at night, I was really unhappy that I gave up my old Kindle and got a Paperwhite. I missed the buttons. So I wanted an Oasis for a long time, and they're ridiculously expensive, but I got given a voucher for John Lewis, and it made up the majority of the cost of this Kindle Oasis. And then Kindle Oasis also went on sale in January, so I got myself one. Let me know in the comments, have you read any of the books that I've hauled? Are you got any interest in reading them? What are you up to? What are you reading at the moment? If you have never been here before and you would like to subscribe, maybe consider subscribing, and hopefully I will see you again here soon. Bye.